Okay, hello. This is a new idea, and it's a series of videos in response to questions that pop up on the threads in the private Facebook group for Debt Ninjas. So I'm going to address them as and when they pop up, and as you might imagine, there's a bit of a backlog to look at. So this is number one, and this is addressing those internet myth letters, and we get a lot of members of the group. They write their threads basically saying, "Should I send the second letter?" And it comes from a position of they get a response from the creditor or the debt collector, whoever it is, and they say in that letter, we're not obliged to respond to this or to answer your questions because this is an internet myth letter. They basically say, we see from your communications that you've used an internet template letter. And it's a growing trend from both the banks and the creditors and the debt collectors and lawyers. And they use it as some sort of diminishing mechanism to invalidate our correspondence, an attempt to sidestep of their legal responsibilities and requirements to answer us appropriately. So firstly, template letters are used by all banks, DCAs and lawyers, and pretty much every other business in the world. A template saves time, keeps communications on point, and crucially keeps the corporate mantra generic and uniformly consistent. That's what template letters are for. It's a universal go-to when composing the same letter time and again to many different people. So why shouldn't we use them? Why is it that our template, the letter, is taken in a negative context? Why is it bad for us to use them but not for them? And essentially, isn't it a case of what's good for the goose is good for the gander? So really, what they're actually doing is they're acting on a knee-jerk response, and it's someone that's been caught in a difficult situation, particularly psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists, and it's to immediately grasp for something that's irrelevant and benign, that's just a tiny detail, that's largely irrelevant to the conversation, and they attempt to throw the focus of the problem into a different area, as far away from the actual bones of the issue as they can possibly get, and into an area that can be discussed and talked about whilst ignoring the elephant in the room. It's usually us that becomes the problem, and the original issue is sidestepped. Of course, we use templates. We use them for exactly the same reasons that the bank, DCAs, and anyone else does. To save time, keep our thoughts linear, and compose a sensible, well thought out, and easy to read, flowing piece of communication. Those corporate giants going down the path of highlighting this tiny detail, saying things like, it's a template letter, so we're not obliged to respond. They're unwittingly tipping their hand. They're telling us right there that the contents of the letter have hit a nerve and are a threat to their game. They're telling us in no uncertain terms that a few cats will likely get out of their bags if any acknowledgement is given and they engage with our letter. Whatever they say, they are obliged to respond, especially if there's nothing to hide and they can demonstrate valid answers to our questions, and especially if they want paying. The failure to engage and or respond appropriately is ultimately damaging to their honour and standing. And they know that if the matter ever gets before a judge, it could potentially unravel their case. So they take the easy and far less dangerous route by focusing on the format of the communications rather than addressing its content. Our points are 100% valid, whether it's a template or not, and also whether they respond or not. But their choice of response reveals such a great deal of uncertainty and trepidation on their part that they feel the need to cover it by talking rubbish. We've asked them direct questions that we have every right to ask under contract rules, especially if we suspect a fraud or a fault has occurred. And what they do from there speaks volumes about their behaviour. It tells us everything we need to know about the nature of our adversary. And aside from their duty under the rules to respond appropriately, by doing what they do, they place themselves into a position of default. This is all the more damaging to them, as we've made a conditional offer to settle the matter once the discrepancies have been addressed and remedied, and the rules of contract have been followed satisfactorily. What they're doing is using might over right. They're strong-arming the issue and doubling down on the fraud by ignoring us completely to get to the finish line. The situation is happening more and more frequently and does nothing more than reveal that they're becoming increasingly concerned and quite possibly overwhelmed with the scale of the new breed of letters arriving. They are being backed into a corner with just one letter, and they're struggling more every day to conceal it. For now, the situation works to our advantage, because at this point our standing has already been made clear to them. They know our position and what they must do if they want our money. When they eventually sell the debt to a DCA, they are irrevocably standing in dishonour. If they or the DCA engage a weak lawyer who practices in operating shenanigans, they'll get the case, which isn't a dispute at all and can be clearly demonstrated as such, submitted to the fake court known as the Civil National Business Centre, usually the Northampton division. There's a full post on this elsewhere. So it's important to note that templates are not a dirty word. They're invaluable tools that are used every day throughout the commercial world. To state you've used an internet template in a negative sense, implying that we must be stupid and naive to believe it's a get-out-of-jail-free card, is pretty much a last-ditch attempt at getting us to feel afraid and cough up what they're demanding in fear of what might happen. Stating that it has no legal basis is a clear sign that they're already on the ropes, because it absolutely and quite obviously has a legal basis, as it's an offer to settle. So that should help take the worry out of their templated response to our template letter. I hope that clarifies the situation somewhat. Please check out the other videos on the channel and don't forget to subscribe for more juice of use.